First we have to get the microphone to my height here. Well, I also in turn want to thank Jenna and Jennifer and everybody who brought me to this area. I really made the tour in Eastern Oregon and Idaho strictly because I was invited here to come speak. And Jenna said when she invited me, she really wanted this to have some ripples around the region. And we've actually had appearances in Boise and Ontario and La Grande and also a meeting in Pendleton today. So we really made good use of a tour. I'm also really thrilled to be here again. This is my second time in Dayton. I drove through here about 4 years ago when a cousin of mine got married in Walla Walla. And I came when the wheat was ripe and it was all brown, and it's such a beautiful change to see the green fields and the different colors of green and the peas growing and the wheat growing, and it's really been wonderful to reconnect in a different season to this area. I'm also going to have to apologize because I've come here with the remnants of a cold, and I'll cough a few times and my voice is kind of cracking, so I'll try to do the best I can to keep talking to you. If you have trouble hearing, just wave your hand or yell or something, and I'll try to do better. I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to really spend quite a bit of time tonight showing some stories about studies I've had a chance to do in Oregon and a little bit in Washington State. But there are only a few examples of a whole nationwide body of work I've had. I'm trying to tell the story of agriculture from the perspective of communities across the United States. And as Lieutenant mentioned, I've been really lucky to travel around a lot and hopefully pollinate some ideas from each region to others. I'm going to give you a lot of numbers, charts, tables, and for those of you who don't like that kind of information, I apologize. It's the only way I know to tell the story that I have. And I'll try to make it as painless as possible, but there will be, in fact, a lot of numbers tonight. And some of the news, frankly, will seem discouraging, especially in the first stages, because some of the story I have to tell is not going to appear optimistic, but I think even the discouraging news will get us down to really understand farming in this country and food in this country in a much better way. And I promise that at the end I will finish with some examples that are really quite energizing and exciting that will really cast a sense of what the future of all this could be. I want to start with just a kind of quick commercial message, listing some of the people who supported my work through the years. This is just a sample of some of the places I've worked and funders who supported me to develop these ideas that really have been they've been birthing for about 30 years now. These are I'm actually up to 45 regions in 20 states now. It changes weekly. But these are all the places that I've had a chance to do studies around the country. And as you see, it's very heavy in Minnesota and Iowa because I live in Minnesota. The Leopold Center for Sustainable Agriculture has invited me to do several regions of Iowa. Also, Oregon Food Bank Sharon Thornbury is here tonight from Oregon Food Bank, has done invited me up there several times to talk. But quite a bit in the Southwest, quite a bit in the Eastern Coast as well. As you know, there's a lot of really diverse areas of the country represented in this map, and I'm pretty pleased to have a sense of how things play out in each of these places. One thing that drives me to do this is that we're very good in this country with the federal data we get from Washington. I can tell you pretty exactly how many bushels of soybeans were raised in the United States in 2007. And I can tell you pretty well how many 400-acre farms there are. But it actually turns out to be quite difficult to answer the question I pose in this slide. What happens to the people who raise those food products, and what happens to the people who eat them? And in general, what I'm trying to do is to look at the food systems we have from the perspective of people in communities like this, because communities often don't get voiced very well. Their needs don't get paid attention, and they don't have a voice in policy very often. So I'm trying to say, if you looked at food from the perspective of people who live in places like Dayton, would we see different things than we do otherwise? And the answer is unequivocally yes. But I find that by taking this perspective also, we learn some really new things that are really important to know if we're going to make things better. With the Leopold Center, we came up with a regional food planning guide a couple of years ago. That was a really sincere effort to try to think about what are the questions a place like Dayton or a place like Port Townsend would have to raise if it wanted to plan an effective local food system for itself. And as part of that, we imagined a vision for a future in which our food systems would actually build health in communities and wealth in communities and capacity among community members and connections among community members. What we're going to find tonight is that the current food system fails on almost all of these counts. And I think we're also going to find that only if people like you start constructing, rolling up your sleeves and constructing systems that meet your needs, can you have a food system here in this region that will address these goals in an effective way. But I also like this formulation because it suggests it's not just about money, it's not just about producing at the cheapest price possible, it's really about the ways we lead our life, the way we connect around food, the importance of food to hospitality and culture, and also the fact that we really want the healthiest food possible to eat. I'm also actually going to shift from the title of my speech a little bit. I think this is called Local Foods as Economic Development, and in the last few months since the fall, I've sort of become more clear that I'm actually arguing now that local foods is the best path to economic recovery in the United States. And I'm saying that for two reasons. One is that food is the #2 household item in each household in the country. So it's a very important part of what we spend. It's a big flow of money. But we also eat every day if we're able to. And the ways we come together around food, the stories we can share, the ways we can kind of collaborate by harvesting and eating food are something you can't come up with a high-tech factory or a manufacturing plant or even a housing development by itself. And I'm really arguing, I was noticing actually that when President Obama announced his stimulus package, and I'm a very big supporter of the president, but he announced that on the same day he was announcing the stimulus package for the economy, we heard on the news that A-Rod of the Yankees had announced he had been taking drugs for the Yankees. And I was wondering why we like stimulus package when it comes to economics and don't like stimulus package when it comes to baseball. Especially because some of the data I show would suggest that we're stimulating an economy that's very effective at taking wealth away from our hands and putting it into the banking system, which apparently would rather squander that wealth than to invest it back where we live. And so I'm a little bit cautious about the stimulus package per se. I think it's important to do to give us some stability now. But it's not an answer for really reconfiguring our economy in the ways we need to have the healthy food systems we deserve. And so I'm really arguing now that this is probably the best path because of the connections we can make. If we can't do it in food, we probably cannot do it anywhere else in the economy. And I think the crisis we're in gives us a great opportunity to figure out some new ways of delivering food to ourselves and having communities that are stronger. With that in mind, I'd like to show you some of the places in Washington I've been able to work. My first study in Washington was in Jefferson County and Port Townsend. I did a second study that involved Clallam County as well. I think I've spoken there 3 or 4 times in the last few years, including a big community planning session almost exactly a year ago that involved 160 people to spend a day on Saturday to plan the future for food systems in Port Townsend and Clallam County. The folks at Washington State picked up on the same methodology and are applying it to Whatcom and Skagit County right now. So there's a study happening that I'm not involved with but uses my methodology. And I also did a study in Clark County for Vancouver, Washington. Again, a little over a year ago, I keynoted a speech in Vancouver where we were able to turn around a mentality that had argued that agriculture was dead in the county and should basically be replaced by houses. And we were able to get some of the proponents of that to embrace a vision of the county really trying to produce some food for itself. I'll show you some data of that in a minute. I'm also going to show you some work I've done in Oregon because it's close to here. The first study I did here, also with the help of Oregon Food Bank, was in Lynn and Benton counties in the Willamette Valley, one of the most beautiful agricultural regions of the country. I've also done some data for the Portland metropolitan area and most recently the Gorge Grown area, which is both counties in both Washington State and Oregon. And I'm going to dwell on that today because it's the most fresh data I have that's close to where you are. And it illustrates some of the themes I have very, very nicely, I think. Those are the partners in that study. The Gorge Grown Food Network is doing some wonderful work with the mobile farmers market, getting the Economic Development Authority in town to really embrace local foods as an economic strategy, using a community food assessment that talks about how to engage low-income people in a better way in the food system.